My child, stop everything right now. This is not a request. This is not a suggestion. This is not a gentle nudge you can acknowledge and move past. I am interrupting you deliberately, urgently, and with purpose. What you were doing a moment ago can wait. What you plan to do next is not more important than this moment. I have stopped you here because what is unfolding in your life cannot be addressed later without cost. Do not tell yourself you will come back to this. Do not assume you will remember it with the same clarity or feel it with the same seriousness. Later is not neutral. Later is not safe for this moment. Later allows things to move without your awareness. And what is moving right now requires your attention. I am calling you because time has shifted. There are moments when patience is wisdom and moments when patience becomes avoidance. You are no longer standing in the first kind of moment. You are standing in a narrow window where clarity has been given and response is required. This is not about emotional intensity. This is about alignment. And alignment always involves timing. Listen carefully. I'm not speaking to stir your feelings for a moment and leave you unchanged. I am speaking because something ahead of you depends on what you do now. Ignoring this will not make it disappear. It will only allow it to pass without you prepared for what follows. This interruption is not inconvenience. It is protection. I know how busy your mind has been. I know how full your days feel. I know how many things are constantly competing for your attention. I see how easily your focus is pulled in different directions. But none of those things matter more than this moment. Heaven has leaned into your life and paused you here because what is unfolding cannot be explained after the fact. It must be received now. When love sees danger approaching, it does not whisper. It warns. And I am warning you now, not because disaster is chasing you, but because direction is shifting quickly. If you are not attentive, you will feel the weight of being out of step with what I am doing. Attention now will save you effort later. Listening now will spare you confusion later. Obedience now will protect your peace later. Do not scroll. Do not pause. Do not minimize what you are sensing. You feel the seriousness in your spirit because it is real. This is not imagination. This is not emotional manipulation. This is discernment activating. Something in you recognizes that this moment is not ordinary. That recognition did not come from fear. It came from awareness. This is a divine emergency. Not because chaos is about to break out, but because alignment is time-sensitive. There are things that can only be adjusted before a certain point. There are decisions that are far easier to make now than to correct later. I am speaking urgently because love warns before time runs out. Love does not wait until consequences are visible to act. Love speaks while there is still room to choose differently. That is why I am calling you now. Stay with me. Do not rush past this. Do not brace yourself defensively. I know you are used to urgency being tied to pressure, fear, or manipulation. You have been rushed before by voices that did not care about your well-being. This is not that. This urgency comes from care. It comes from seeing ahead of you and refusing to remain silent. There are moments when silence would be unkind. This is one of them. I've been patient with you. I have waited while you processed, hesitated, questioned, and delayed. I have protected you during times when you did not realize how close certain outcomes were. I gave you space to grow, to learn, to become more aware. I restrained things you were not ready to carry yet. That patience was intentional. That protection was real. But patience does not mean endless delay. Time is no longer neutral in this area of your life. It is active. And activity requires attention. You are no longer in a season where postponement carries no cost. Do not assume urgency means you have failed. It does not. It means clarity has been given and response is now required. You are not being judged. You are being invited. Ignoring this moment will not make it go away. It will simply allow it to pass without you aligned to what comes next. I know how tempting it is to tell yourself this is just another message, another pause, another voice among many. But listen to what is happening inside you right now. Notice the alertness. Notice the stillness mixed with intensity. Notice how part of you knows this matters. That knowing is not emotion. It is discernment. This emergency is not about panic. It is about priority. You must decide what matters most in this moment. Distraction will pull you away easily. Habit will try to move you along automatically. If you let those things lead you now, you will feel the cost later. Staying here will not harm you. Leaving will. I'm not asking for your perfection. I'm asking for your attention. I'm not demanding that you fix everything immediately. I am calling you to stop, listen, and be honest with yourself about what you already know. You know there has been a growing urgency within you. You know there have been signs you could not ignore. You know this moment did not come out of nowhere. I have been calling you quietly for some time. Through restlessness that would not leave you. Through discomfort you could not explain. Through thoughts that returned again and again even when you tried to silence them. Those were early warnings. This is the clear call. When early warnings are ignored, love speaks louder, not to punish but to prevent unnecessary loss. Do not confuse my urgency with anger. I'm not angry with you. I am attentive to you. I see what is coming and I want you prepared rather than surprised. Preparation begins with listening. Protection begins with obedience. Peace begins with alignment, and alignment begins now. Slow your thoughts. Let your heart open instead of bracing. You do not need to understand everything yet. You only need to stay present. What you need to hear next will come clearly if you do not rush away. This moment matters more than you realize. Treat it with seriousness, not fear. With respect, not panic. With focus, not resistance. Heaven has interrupted you because heaven cares where you are going. I am speaking now because love will not let you pass this point unaware. Do not delay. Do not minimize. Do not move on. This is an emergency because timing matters, and you are being called to pay attention now. Stay with me. Listen carefully. What I am about to say is meant to change what comes next. My child, I need you to understand why this moment feels heavier than others before it. Why the urgency feels sharper. Why the same delays that once felt harmless now feel costly. Nothing has suddenly changed, but something has quietly reached its limit. There are seasons in your life where movement is gentle and consequences are soft. In those seasons, waiting does not harm you. Hesitation is absorbed by grace. You are allowed to grow internally before acting externally. You lived in such a season. I gave you room to process, to question, to learn to recognize my voice without fear. That was not wasted time. That was preparation. But seasons do not remain open forever. A season exists to accomplish something. When it finishes its work, it closes whether you feel ready or not. That is what you are sensing now. The protection that once felt like patience is shifting into direction. The grace that once covered delay is now calling for response. This is why silence is no longer loving. I spoke to you before in quieter ways. Through restlessness that surfaced without explanation. Through thoughts that returned no matter how often you tried to dismiss them. Through a discomfort that lingered even when everything looked fine on the surface. Those were not random feelings. Those were early warnings wrapped in mercy. At that time, a whisper was enough. Now it is not. What once could be postponed without consequence will now create unnecessary struggle if ignored. That is not punishment. That is timing. Timing does not shame you, it simply moves. And when it moves, it carries seasons forward with it. You may wonder why this feels sudden. It is not sudden. It is cumulative. Many small moments have been leading here. Many choices, many delays, many times when you felt you should move but did not. None of those moments were wasted, but they were counted. And now the count has reached its limit. Listen carefully. I'm not threatening you. I am informing you. Think of it this way: water does not suddenly appear at the edge. It rises slowly, quietly, often unnoticed. The emergency is not the water itself, but the moment it reaches the line where action must be taken. You are at that line now. Heaven cannot remain silent because remaining silent would no longer protect you. Silence would allow drift. Drift would lead you into outcomes I have been trying to keep you from without your awareness. Protection sometimes looks like patience. Other times it looks like interruption. Right now, protection looks like clarity spoken urgently. You may feel the urge to pull back, to tell yourself this is too intense, too serious, too much. Do not run from that feeling. That resistance is not fear, it is recognition. Something in your spirit understands that you have been stopped on purpose. Heaven does not interrupt without reason. This emergency is not about control. It is about preparation. There are things ahead of you that require decisiveness, trust, and alignment. Entering the next season distracted or half listening would be more painful than stopping now. I want you to understand this clearly. The emergency is not that something terrible is about to happen. The emergency is that something important is about to happen, and you must be ready. Readiness does not come from rushing. It comes from listening. It comes from responding while there is still space to do so. You have been protected longer than you realize. There were outcomes that should have reached you earlier but did not. There were consequences that were softened. There were lessons that could have been harsher but were not. That was mercy holding things back while you grew stronger. But mercy has a purpose. If I continued to hold everything back now, it would no longer be mercy. It would be harm. It would keep you from stepping into what you are prepared to carry. Love does not overprotect to the point of preventing growth. You are stronger now than you were before. You are more aware. You are more honest. You are more capable of choosing with trust instead of fear. That is why the tone has changed. I am not removing my protection. I am changing its form. Protection now looks like urgency instead of patience. It looks like clarity instead of quiet. It looks like an alarm instead of a whisper. This does not mean you are less loved. It means you are being trusted with truth. Heaven is speaking now because you are no longer unaware. Silence would now be agreement with delay, and I will not agree with what would harm you later. This moment is grace, not pressure. Grace speaks before damage becomes permanent. Grace interrupts while there is still room to change course. Grace warns before regret has the final word. You are not being cornered. You are being awakened. Do not mistake seriousness for fear. Panic rushes without clarity. I am speaking with calm authority because clarity has arrived. The season has shifted and your response matters. Stay with me. Listen closely. This emergency is not the end of peace. It is the doorway to it, if you are. Respond now. My child, hear me gently now. What I am about to say is not accusation. It is understanding. I am not exposing your past to shame you. I am revealing it to free you. You did not delay because you were careless. You did not hesitate because you were rebellious. You did not ignore me because you did not care. Your delay came from fear, exhaustion, and confusion that slowly layered over time. You were afraid, not foolishly afraid but cautiously afraid. Afraid of making the wrong decision. Afraid of losing what little stability you had managed to hold together. Afraid that obedience would cost you more than you could afford to lose. Fear often disguises itself as wisdom. It tells you to wait, to be careful, to protect yourself. And because that voice sounds reasonable, it is easy to follow without realizing it has taken the lead. I saw that fear. I did not despise you for it. I understood it. You were also exhausted. Not the kind of tiredness sleep fixes, but the deep weariness that comes from carrying too much for too long. You were tired of hoping. Tired of adjusting. tired of being strong. Even clarity felt heavy because clarity implied movement, and movement felt impossible when you were already depleted. Delay born from exhaustion is not defiance. It is survival. And you were confused. You wanted certainty before you moved. You wanted reassurance that the next step would be safe, that it would not lead to more disappointment, that it would not cost you everything. You prayed for clarity, but clarity did not come in the way you expected. So you stayed where you were, telling yourself you were waiting on me, even when part of you knew you were also waiting on your fear to quiet down. I'm not offended by that honesty. I see it. Delay does not always come from disobedience. Sometimes it comes from not knowing how to trust yet. Sometimes it comes from wounds that taught you to be cautious. Sometimes it comes from being overwhelmed by outcomes you could not control. That is why I was patient with you. Mercy held things back while you learned courage. Mercy softened consequences that would have crushed you earlier. Mercy gave you time to grow internally before action was required externally. But hear this clearly now.